For the latest Hellboy news updates, visit hybridnetworkyt.com. Hey, what is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Hybrid Network. I'm Luke, and we're back today with another Hellboy discussion video, this time taking a look at the top 5 stories that I think should make it in some shape or form into the movies. Traditionally, when it comes to adaptations in these big comic book films, it's usually a loose resemblance they take with the source material. This isn't bad in any sense of the imagination, though. If anything, it's fantastic, creating original narratives and character arcs that can utilize some of the best ideas from the stories of the past. Hellboy is no exception to this rule, with both the first and second movies borrowing key story elements and moments from throughout the character's history and placing them within the broader scope of their own narratives. So I mean, the new film series could be going down a way different path than the stories I lay out here, but these are just a few of Hellboy's many escapades that I think would work brilliantly for the future of the character. So, in no particular order, here's the top 5 Hellboy stories that should make it into the movies. Number 5. Makoma. Probably one of the coolest stories in the series, Makoma isn't really even Hellboy's story. It's the legend of the African folk hero Makoma told to the demon detective, but what's most interesting about this story is that the way it's told has it mirror Hellboy's own life struggles. And it's key in helping him realize his place within the nature of the world and in the weight that his destiny puts on his shoulders. I don't imagine this could be a movie, I mean, obviously, but if it could appear in some capacity as a dream sequence, that would be pretty interesting to see, and would be a really cool way to deliver the themes present within Hellboy's journey to the audience, while delivering some pretty great visuals overall. Number 4. Into the Silent Sea. I actually just read the story this past week after getting it from San Diego Comic-Con, but I've gotta say, this is probably one of my favorite Hellboy stories. It's short, granted, but a lot of the stories I'm gonna be presenting here are gonna be pretty short because brevity isn't a factor in this scenario, it's how it can be incorporated and how I think it services the character. As for this story in particular, well, it's just a great ghost story about the pursuit of knowledge and, as Hellboy puts it, never trusting a talking snake. If you were ever in the mood for just a small taste of Hellboy, this is the story that does just that. And as for its place in the movies, well, this is a dream as well, but you could most likely combine it within the main plot of the movies to make something that speaks to the general film itself and its relation to Hellboy. The main reason though, Hellboy fights a bunch of sea monsters and zombies, and I really want to see that. Number 3. The Corpse. This is probably one of my favorite Hellboy stories, most likely because it just encompasses everything that I love about the character. Hellboy is tasked with saving a baby girl from a group of Irish fairies that claim they will return the girl to her parents should Hellboy bury a talking corpse within a Christian gravesite. This story is pretty incredible for a number of reasons, the most prominent being the back and forth between Hellboy and the corpse he's forced to carry, something I'm sure seems familiar, and that's because we saw elements of that in the first Hellboy movie. So why do I want to see it come back? Well, mostly because the child he saves, Alice Monaghan, plays a pretty big role within the whole saga dealing with the Queen of Blood, aiding Hellboy on his quest to stop the witch from bringing about impending doom. And it might be cheating just a bit, but I feel like adding in some of the other Irish folktales like the Iron Shoes would make a pretty compelling frame story within the main narrative for these films. On the whole though, it's just a great story, and I'd love to see it incorporated again in some way. Number 2. The Conqueror Worm. I like this story for a number of reasons, the most pressing being that I like what it does for the extension of Hellboy's universe, and I like how it incorporates a number of major players and ideas into one big horror sci-fi fantasy adventure. The basic crux is that Hellboy and Roger the Homunculus are tasked with investigating an old Nazi research facility, where years ago Lobster Johnson and his crew paid witness to the scientists sending one of their own into space. Old villain Hermann von Klemt and his Kriegaf, which is basically a gorilla with weird Nazi science being performed on him, reconvened to welcome the return of the man who went into space, where as it turned out, a celestial being known as the Conqueror Worm, in reality one of the Ogdru Hem, took refuge in his body and thus began an insane journey to stop the worm from reaching the rest of civilization and bringing about the end of mankind as we know it. There's a lot more that happens outside of that, but to give it all away would be to ruin the experience of, in my opinion, one of the most fun Hellboy stories. We'd get to see Roger in action and introduce Lobster Johnson into the fray as well, not to mention the Ogdru Jihad and its children making a return, connecting back to the Plague of Frogs and Abe Sapien. And did I mention it's fun? Because it is. It's really fun. You should go read it. And finally, at number 1, Strange Places. This is another great story, and it's one that deals a lot with Hellboy's burden as the Beast of the Apocalypse. I know that I say every story is great, and that's probably just my bias talking, but this entire collection I think deserves some sort of loose adaptation within the story. You see, it's pretty great as it showcases the lengths that everyone is willing to go to take advantage of Hellboy. On one hand, the 3 mermaids and the Bog Rouge seek to extend their lives within the world and tear Hellboy apart, locking away his right hand hand and keeping the Ogdru Jihad from using it to return to the world. While in the island, Hellboy washes on shore and comes face to face with a mystic that seeks to use the end of the world and the coming of the Great Serpent by bringing humanity under his direction. Utilizing two visually astounding locales and some pretty impactful dream sequences, this collection I think would work wonders for exploring Hellboy's stance on his so-called destiny and the path that he would rather take instead of everything that others try to put on him. It's huge for Hellboy's character, and it's huge for the state of the universe as it moves onward towards Hellboy's final encounter and denial of everything he was meant to be when he faces the Queen of Blood. But that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you all for listening, and just for fun, let me know which is your favorite Hellboy story. Don't forget to subscribe to the Hybrid Network to stay up to date on the latest Hellboy news and discussions. This is Luke signing out.